And coming in live. Welcome back to Central Valley Talk, Briggs on Books. We've had a continuing series going about finances and wealth and what you should be doing with your money, what's happening in the economy. Can anybody predict the future? Well, John Grace is here, who's been just taking us through this trail. I guess nobody can really predict the future, but John has been saying to us that there's ways to get ready for things that might or might not be coming. And as these weeks go on, John, I said, is this guy a prophet? How does he know all these things in advance? But it was more just warnings you gave us about a few things. What is going on, John?
Well, it's not boring, Mike, right? I
Right.
mean, we started off the year with the bulls just running
Yeah.
for the fences, and now it looks like, uh-oh, that bear has been around the corner, and now the bear's been lurking.
Yeah.
And these are interesting animals that we use for the stock market, and they do interesting things.
Yeah.
The bull throws their prey up to the air and then tries to gore them,
Yeah.
either in the air or on the ground. The bull, I'm sorry, that's the bull. The bear just bears down on you and wants to crush you, which is interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
we think of the bull as being uplifting, enthusiastic, optimistic, right?
Yeah.
And the bear, no, we don't want that. But the truth is, bull or bear, Mike, we don't care. And what we're saying is maybe instead of trying to predict the future, we should do a better job of preparing for the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. And how about let's learning from our history, right? I like to say that we don't learn from history, Mike, because we're too darn busy repeating it. And if we look at the Great Depression, that started around October 24th, 1929.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is that many of us know the stock market, it was only the Dow at the time, was off about 80%, 85%. And then a year later, New York real estate was off 70%. Now, both the securities industry, that's what I'm in, right? The real estate industry, we both say the same thing, both industries. It always comes back. But let's take a minute and look at that for a minute. First of all, stocks did come back, but it only took 25 years, Mike. And that's assuming you and I, as investors, then did not redeem a share. We kept the stocks that just crushed us. We got kicked in the assets, right? And it took 25 years to come back.
Yeah.
New York real estate a year later dropped 70%. That's right, 7-0. And yes, the NAR would tell us it came back. It did. It just took 40 years. And wait, there's one more shoe to drop here, and that is life expectancy, if we were adults in the 20s, was about 57.
Yeah.
So that suggests to me that a lot of folks who had to be adults at the time to accumulate whatever wealth there might be, but I have to imagine a lot of us died with regret, and I'm afraid that that's going to happen again.
Okay.
Our research team suggests that stocks and real estate could be off 60% or more, but the real question is, how might people keep their assets from being handed to?
Okay.
That's the real question.
Yeah, because I got to tell you, John, I'm closer to 70 than I am to 60 now. And I can only afford to live a few more years, so I can't wait 25 or 40 years to recover.
Well, I don't think anybody can, frankly. I don't care if you're 30, right? It's depressing as all get out when you watch whatever you had just plummet in value, and it doesn't seem to come back fast enough, if ever, while we're still here. So what I'm saying, and I appreciate us having this conversation with your audience, Mike, is we need to look around to see how we might limit our losses, as opposed to understand that we have to live as long as we can with the losses. And that means not just asking and answering the question, are you conservative, moderate, or aggressive? I don't really understand the question. You don't really understand the answer.
Yep.
What the heck are we talking about? How about drilling down a little bit deeper and going through, maybe that's what we do with our clients, a series of questions so that you can see, is it 8%? Is it 12%? Is it 40%? Let's define that as well as we possibly can. That's number one. And then number two, is it conceivable that the portfolio might be designed, at least with the goal, that we can limit the losses so that your portfolio performs within your parameters? So if you say, let's start, I've got $1 million, I can live with a 12% loss, and then we wake up when the market's off 20 and your account's off 10, 10% on $1 million is $100,000, sorry. But you said you could live with, stop digging at $120,000 loss, and if we left the money where it wasn't moved around, where it was a static account, that saw those 20 to 30% losses like we did in 2022. Well, if you're off at 10 and the market's off at 20 or 30, 10's better than 20 or 30.
Yeah.
100,000 is bad, 200, 300,000 is far worse. We might come back from a 10% loss once we start diving below those 30, 40, 50% declines, particularly, Mike, when we're taking withdrawals, as so many people are in our 70s. This is a whole new ball game. So when it comes to our retirement assets, where we have to take those withdrawals at some point from traditional retirement accounts, that only increase the amount we have to take out every year, no matter what the account does, what the market does. This is when it becomes so incumbent upon clients to open your statements, figure out where there are brakes on this roller coaster.
Yeah.
Just don't ride the roller coaster and hope it doesn't crash and burn.
Yeah. I guess one of the things you're saying is the only thing you can predict for sure is there will be ups and downs.
100%.
Okay.
And the question becomes, how do you limit the decline so that you can tell the story, all right? And explaining that, we do two things. One, we like to implement actively managed investment vehicles. In other words, like most accounts stay 5% cash, 95% invested, some combination of stocks and bonds. But in 08, before the market was off 37%, you might have preferred to have your account start the year 5%, but hypothetically get to the end of the year and it's 50, 60, 70, 100% cash. All right? We move out of the shares into cash where it's safe. We're not going to make any money, but more importantly, we're not going to lose any money.
Right.
And now we can see the evidence in some cases where, while the market was off 37%, and the passive accounts, the no-load ETFs and the mutual funds that we told you to put all your money in many cases were off over 40%. If it were the case that your account was off in 08, let's say less than 20%, all right, that's recoverable.
I see.
In fact, if that was the case, and now we saw March 9th, 2009, we're off to the races, we see a recovery in a year or two, whereas let's say we finished the year 100% cash, but starting March 9th, 2009, the cash account size came back down to 5%. Now we're moving back into risk assets. We want all of that upside. It might have been the case that your account took a year or two to get back to even, where the passive accounts, in many cases, took 4 to 5 years to get back to even.
Yeah.
And that's the piece of the puzzle that we want people to recognize, because my industry, frankly, encourages folks to live with losses, Mike, when it's not necessary anymore.
Right. Now, are you saying that cash is less volatile?
Oh yeah, it's flat. It's like a dead person's EKG. It's not going up, it's not going down, and that's the thing. Let's not. So many of our accounts are professionally managed, right?
Yeah.
But is that any different than moving from one deck chair to another deck chair on the Titanic?
Right.
This stock to that stock, this bond to that bond, and then the whole ship sinks. No, let's take the deck chairs off the sinking ship.
I see.
And go to cash, put the money on the sidelines, on the sand, right, where it's not going to go anywhere. And then when the rising, the ship can rise again, another ship, well, okay, now let's take that off from March 9th, 2009, back in risk assets and see again. And in fact, the markets were very good in 2009. So if you were off 20% hypothetically in a bad year, 2008, and hypothetically you netted 25 or 26% in 2009, wow, you're back to even in a year or two, as opposed to needing that Hail Mary pass to play out for you to get the account back to where you were at the high water mark. Right.
So I guess you're telling us that something's going to happen and we should get ready.
That is my absolute sense. It's just that, think of it this way. We've all been riding the roller coaster to new highs, no matter where we threw darts in the dark. And sometimes that gives us a great deal of confidence, but it's false confidence. And we're not really prepared for the event that we love so much to turn on its head.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going into any kind of a theater, any kind of a public setting. I don't know about you, but I make a point of making sure I tell everybody at my party, there's an emergency exit, there's an emergency. Let's just look at them now. Hopefully you won't need them,
Right.
but it's good to find the emergency exit well before you need it. Like I say, where are the brakes on this roller coaster before there's a stampede, everybody's trying to get out the same door at the same time.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to get hurt.
My dad would tell me, Mike, just don't look at your stocks. Just leave them there forever. Just they'll equal out.
Well, that's the advice of the securities industry,
Yeah.
and that's for those who have a lot of time on their side.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. Let's suppose you sold. Let's just make up a story. This is actually a real case. You sold a business for $5 million. Now you're 70, and you want to live off of that money.
Yeah.
$5 million is what you netted after tax and everything else. A 4% withdrawal on $5 million is what, $200,000 a year. For most of us, that's good living.
Yeah.
Retired on $200,000, you don't have to get up and travel the world. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But let's suppose, remember, people our ages, they saw two 50% losses in the same decade.
Yes.
2002, again 08, 09. So let's suppose now you got the 5 million, you're comfortable being all over the world at 200,000, and you wake up and your 5 million has just been cut in half. Now you have $2.5 million,
Yeah.
and if you still need the 200,000 to do what it is you do, live life the way you live, now we have to take the withdrawal rate from 4% and set it at 8%. This plane might be coming down harshly.
Yep.
All right, you
Yep.
got 50% less, and you're taking out 100% more from 4% to 8%. Keep taking out at 8%. This is probably not really sustainable. So that's why I submit it's so important to figure out how to limit the losses. We
Right.
do this. We try to do this in the games we play. Right? We don't want that Hail Mary pass just to get back in the game. We want to play it close so that we can at least be in the game, and that's the point. That's why we say bull or bear, we don't care. We want people to survive and thrive in 2025, no matter what, because we could be into a replay for a host of reasons of things looking a lot like what happened in 1929.
Yeah.
And again, it took over 20 years for stocks and about 40 years for New York real estate to recover.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has that much time. And you know, to that point, Mike, let's recognize another example. Right now, let's look at Japan. Japan's Nikkei, that's their version of their 225, that's the same equivalent of our S&P 500. It peaked 1229.89, around 40,000. Dropped 80%. A year later, guess what real estate did in Japan? Dropped 70%.
Yep.
Sound familiar?
Yep.
Here's the trick question, and it's fun to play along. Which one, is a trick question, has come back to even? You know the answer without knowing the answer. You get the answer right.
Is it nothing? I don't know.
So it's not A, it's not B, it must be C.
Yeah.
None of the above.
None of the above. That was my guess. None. None came back to even.
Neither have gotten back to even since 89 and 90,
Yeah.
respectively, for stocks and real estate. That's a long time. And understand, the Japanese are beautiful people. They live to 85. They don't whine. Americans, well,
We whine,
we
yeah.
like to scream and holler.
Yeah. Or says something. Do you see anything happening now in our economy or in history that's similar to 29?
Yes. The tariffs
Yeah.
are like a turmoil. In fact, I think it was a system of tariffs back in 1928, 29 put in place where we were going to just gather all these taxes. Okay, they're a wild card. They're Pandora's box.
Yeah.
But the one or two things that I think we will not miss is increased inflation and a decreased gross domestic product. And the things that are really different right now, everywhere we look, we're looking at auto delinquencies, 30-year high. Credit card delinquencies are rising again. All right, we've got folks getting older than we've been before. All right, and we've got this $36 trillion worth of national debt.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things happening right before. Let's look at it this way. Markets love certainty, and right now all you can see is what? Uncertainty
yeah.
wherever you look. So we're saying, let's get figure out where your brakes are to limit the losses so that you can stay in the game. And that way you live to 100, you got some money, you don't have to try to become a Walmart greeter.
Yep.
Supposing you could, you're overqualified. Let's figure out how you can limit the losses. That's what we like to do, whether it's real estate or stocks, so that if things become too uncertain and we find that you find yourself in a ditch and the ditch just keeps digging, where is your ability to stop the digging so that you can survive and thrive and tell the story?
Who can they contact for that kind of analysis? Do you do that? Should they call you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I tell you what, your audience is welcome to give us a call, contact us at Investors Advantage, and we'll take, let's just say 15, 20 minutes to see, do you recognize the risk that you're taking? By the way, one of your listeners did give us a call looking at his mother's account, and we were able to take her portfolio as she presented the statement and look back to see if she had held the same positions in 2008 as are reflected on the current portfolio. And remember, 2008 market was off 37%. Mike, her account was off 70%. And she did not know this.
She didn't even know it, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the good news for her, she's living with her son, so he's covering her expenses. Yeah. But, on $1 million off 70%, that's minus 700,000, leaving you with 300,000. What do you have to do? Shoot yourself in the head because this is too painful? And that's why it's so important to see how the accounts are treating you, see what they did in 08, see what they did in 2022. Right. If you weren't prepared for those last two experiences, how might you possibly be prepared for the next, no matter which way it turns?
So the advice from my father saying, don't even look at it, may not be the best advice. Somebody ought to look at it, but I'm not an expert on this stuff. I have no idea. So John Grace, I guess, is the guy to have a look at it.
Well, you want to have somebody look at it with you to help you see what you can do. Right. If it's not important to you that you limit the losses, go with God. Let the roller coaster run, okay? If you don't care. If you do care, or as I say, you've got money in positions where you're taking withdrawals, it's a different ballgame. I suspect when your father told you that, you weren't taking any money out of the account. Yeah. So who cares what it does, right? In fact, you hope it goes down where you're putting money in, but you don't want it to go down when you're taking money out. That's when we crossed into the twilight zone, and we want to limit those losses as best we can, so we can live, stay in the game, and be able to tell the story.
And like I say, now that I'm closer to 70 than I am to 60, I better get it in order and know where I'm going and know where I stand. So,
and we've got a lot of companies. Those born 1964 to 46 to 64. There we go. That's 76 million people. The baby boomers who had a demand for everything: Whammo, Mustangs, houses. But let's just recognize this. This is really important. Because this is one of those things, everybody's looking at houses from the standpoint of interest rates. Wait a minute. Whatever you're selling, what do you need? You need people. You've had 76 million people go through the economy like an egg through a python, okay? Demand for everything. So now you tell me what you imagine's going to happen. When we get into our 70s, and that's the age Americans tend to, I'm going to be optimistic, go to heaven. And the inventory for things like houses remain pretty much the same. Where do you imagine prices and rents are headed?
So a lot less people are going to be seeking housing.
Well, and so the demand's going to heaven, the supplies remain the same, prices are going to maybe a very hot place. But let's recognize, as I said to my friend with 12 homes, she and her husband, this is a great time. Take 6 off the table. You don't have to buy any more, right? But you like getting the value that your investments have risen to, that you never imagined. But you count the equity as what? Cash. And we all know it's not cash until you cash in your chips. So let's look at what Warren Buffett has been doing. That's a good story to recognize. What was it, March 2024? He had accumulated something like $180 billion in cash. Finished year end, $325 billion sitting in money market accounts, cash accounts. And as of last week, it appears as this man has amassed a total now of $334 billion. That's a whole lot of money. But my real point is, he's poised to play whatever game he wants to play. If cash is king, I imagine at 94, 95 is looking for bargains somewhere where he can buy low and sell high, as opposed to keeping that equity in whatever. In his case, it was mostly stock. Keeping this equity in the stocks He said, I'm going to take cash. I'm going to take my chips off the table, and then I'm ready to roll. I'm in a position where
Yep.
I can buy from distressed sellers.
Yep.
That's a good place to be. So that's what I'm saying. Let's not get high on the hopium and expect, trees to grow to the sky. It might be a good time to take whatever appreciated assets you might have and look at them again. Can you withstand? Would it be okay? 50, 60, 70% loss? I don't know what it might be. But if you got the cash, guess what? You don't care.
You don't care. That's right. And you're ready to roll when bargains
Bingo.
come up. Yeah.
That's right.
Very good.
That's right. Yeah. Opportunities come to those with cash. They just fall in your lap. And now you say, this was good. That was a good buy. I'm sorry it wasn't a good sell, but that's the way life goes.
Yeah. By the way, John, as you probably can guess, we've gone over time again, but I love talking to you so much. I just want to give you a minute to close down with anything you think our viewers ought to know or anything you want to talk about in the world, whatever you want to say.
Well, I'll say, give us 15 minutes, contact us at Investors Advantage on Westlake Village, and we'll sit down and look at, without cost or obligation, see if there's something that you can do that might be of value to you so you can limit your losses. That way you know what you're doing with the money as opposed to thinking hope is a strategy.
Yeah. And I tell you, for our viewers, I don't always get what these financial guys are telling us or talking about, but I think that this one's telling us, be ready.
Yes.
Thank you, John.
Interesting. That way there'll be less regret.
Less regret. Be ready. Talk to somebody about it. Talk to a pro. I'll put John Grace's numbers and web address, everything on the screen so you can reach him. And for our viewers, don't go anywhere because we're going to be right back with another guest right after this.